So I would like to welcome Archana on stage to give our welcome remarks. Archana is the head of legal for Liberty Asia, so welcome to the stage, Archana.
Afternoon, everybody. I feel rather self-conscious and conspicuous today because as I left home, my daughter said to me, my 6-year-old, "Mummy, but you always wear black. Why would you wear pink today?" I said, "Because I always wear black, I decided to wear pink." To which she said, "You know, no one will take you seriously in pink." So I'm determined today that we're going to set that record straight, and I will prove her wrong, and you will help me to prove her wrong. So, Kimberly, thank you very much for the introduction. The Honourable Mrs. Anson Chan, esteemed dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to extend a very warm Liberty Asia welcome to you as Thomson Reuters key event partner for the Stop Slavery Summit. Liberty Asia has had the pleasure and privilege of partnering with Thomson Reuters pretty much since Liberty Asia was founded. And it is a real testament to the strength of this relationship that I'm standing here before you today making these opening remarks. The issue of modern slavery needs no introduction, and it suffices to say that internationally it is recognized and accepted that this is a gross violation of human rights, one of the fastest growing forms of organized crime, and a serious reputational, financial, and legal risk for business. The eradication of modern-day slavery is also a sustainable development goal and an issue of concern now on a global, regional, and national level. An overarching theme for today is really the transformative and potent power of partnership. And I thought it might be interesting, as Kimberly mentioned, to tell you a little bit about our partnership with Thomson Reuters over the years. Liberty Asia is a relatively young organization, and from the time we started out, it was very obvious to us that one of the key challenges facing the counter-trafficking movement was very much the lack of flow of data from the front line into the front desk. And why was this important? Because at the front desk, monies that were related to slavery were being banked. At the front desk, monies were being used for investments and deals into industries that were tainted by slavery. Liberty Asia partnered with a number of NGOs on the ground and would gather from them local media information, which it would then screen and share with Thomson Reuters WorldCheck. Now, WorldCheck, as many of you will know, is a third-party database currently being used by over 5,000 financial institutions and countless non-financial institutions. And of course, doing the name check using the adverse media facilities of WorldCheck is a very important part of client onboarding and KYC procedures. Over the last few years, Liberty Asia, with 37 partners on the ground across 25 countries globally, has submitted 11,455 names of individuals, organizations, and assets linked to slavery to WorldCheck. 90% of these have been converted into new profiles or updated profiles onto WorldCheck. What this does is to allow financial institutions using WorldCheck to access information about new or existing customers where these may have any kind of link with modern-day slavery activities. Now, from that point onwards, it is entirely up to the financial institution, having been put on notice, whether they conduct further due diligence, whether the information is powerful enough for them not to onboard a client, or whether further digging needs to be done. Needless to say that from the perspective of identifying, trafficking, and tracking money flows, this is a potent mechanism that can be used to identify and disrupt money flows that relate to slavery. Today, more than ever, this partnership is so relevant. Our criminal justice approaches are very perpetrator-focused. And how do you use this to combat a crime that crosses jurisdictions, that crosses actors? We need to look at disrupting the environment within which slavery thrives, and that involves looking at the financial networks. Disruption is achieved when financial investigations are being run alongside criminal investigations, and when perpetrators and their financial capabilities are both being apprehended. Data is needed to identify risks. Data is needed to start investigations. The collaboration, data gathering, and information sharing that is promoted by our media monitoring project was recently recognized by the US Department of State in its annual Trafficking in Persons report as one of the most innovative and promising practices in combating trafficking globally. The blood, sweat, and tears of 40 million victims globally generates an estimated $150 billion in revenue. How much more effective would our efforts be if we were harnessing not simply the criminal justice efforts mechanism, but also our anti-money laundering and anti-corruption regimes? One must remember that the same networks that serve the traffickers are also networks that serve wildlife traffickers, terrorists, and drug traffickers. And these multiple networks are facilitated by very commonly shared corruption elements. Simply looking at the anti-money laundering framework opens up a new world of allies and partners in the form of regulators, financial institutions, etc., who often unknowingly end up being conduits for proceeds related to slavery. These new allies have a very important role and are very well placed to use their leverage to drive change across different businesses. And it is important that we feed these allies with the relevant information from the front line. Let us not forget that in the trenches on the front lines are our NGO partners, who share with us the vision of making this information travel and be used in the correct manner. To Thomson Reuters, this was a leap of faith a few years ago. You have shared and continue to share our vision, and for that we are deeply grateful and look forward to growing our partnership with you. I would like to take this opportunity to remember NGO partners of mine, human rights defenders and activists globally, who in this room and beyond are tireless in serving victims and survivors they work with, and who demonstrate incredible strength and resilience in the face of adversity, reprisals, and a shrinking civic space and lack of resources. They are often forgotten. Without you, friends, there would be no counter-trafficking movement, and your commitment to justice for the vulnerable is an inspiration to all. Throughout the day, you will hear from very carefully put together panels on how multidisciplinary partnerships across the environmental, social, and governance movements can better engage with each other and work with each other. You will hear about innovations on data and technology. And today also marks the launch of Liberty Asia and Inodo Rights corporate governance document, which looks at directors' duties. You should have that on your chair or in the room outside. I hope that what you will take away from today is very much that we are looking at a much larger pool of stakeholders under the modern slavery umbrella. Governments who are under pressure to do more, brands who are under pressure to be competitive and sustainable, shareholders who now want to maximize their returns sustainably, employees who are seeking employment opportunities free of exploitation, trade unions, consumers, and the list goes on. Our interests and agendas coincide in many respects, and there is so much more that we need to do to harness that. In addition to the millions who have already fallen to slavery, many more will continue to fall. Mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, communities, and minorities. We must make every day count. And as you participate and engage in the discussions today, please think about what you will teach others beyond this room about what you will learn here today. And think about how you will give back what you receive in this room today. Please allow me to challenge you to look around the room and to think about possible impactful partnerships that you can form in this room and beyond this room. We often talk about how complex modern slavery issues are and how we need to gain trust and move softly. This is very true when you talk about the private sector. Don't offend anybody, be very careful, and we need to tread carefully, etc. Try explaining this to a community that has lost most of its young men to slavery at sea. Try explaining this to the family of a child who has been trafficked for sex. Try explaining this to the domestic worker who is debt bonded, who is being exploited, and who has limited access to justice. These will make very little sense to those people. We do not have all the time in the world, and for many vulnerable people, time is of the essence. There are many anti-slavery platforms and alliances that are forming each day, and it is right that the tide is turning. There is more awareness today than there ever has been before, and with new laws and litigations, we continue to push in a positive direction. There is so much to be hopeful for, but there is also much that remains to be done. I ask you to join us at this summit to change the world, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are usually the people who do. Thank you.